What happens when freedom leads not to fulfillment, but to testing? Imagine this. You've just escaped a life of slavery, a life of oppression and hardship. You're free. But then you find yourself in a vast, empty wilderness. Suddenly, you realize that freedom without faith can feel like another kind of prison. This is the incredible story of the Israelites, a journey of 40 years that would test hearts, reveal rebellion, and ultimately prove that God's faithfulness endures far longer than human doubt. After their dramatic departure from Egypt and receiving the law at Mount Sinai, the Israelites set out toward the Promised Land, a land flowing with milk and honey. It was an exciting time. God Himself went before them, a pillar of cloud by day to shield them from the scorching sun, and a pillar of fire by night to light their way and keep them warm. They had a divine GPS, a constant visible reminder of God's presence. But it wasn't long before the initial excitement wore off, and the harsh reality of the desert set in. The complaints began to bubble up, first as whispers, then as loud cries. "We remember the fish we ate in Egypt for free," they grumbled, "and the cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions, and the garlic." Isn't it strange how memory works? They completely forgot the brutal slavery, the whips, the endless labor. Instead, they romanticized the menu of their captivity. They traded the promise of a future for a nostalgic and false memory of the past. In response, God provided for them miraculously. Every morning, like dew on the ground, a mysterious food called manna appeared. It was literally bread from heaven. But even a daily miracle can become mundane. Soon, they grew tired of it. "Our soul loathes this worthless bread," they cried, demanding meat. God answered their demand, sending a huge flock of quail into their camp. But their craving had turned to greed, and their indulgence led to a plague. At every step, their journey was marked by this cycle of provision and complaint. They questioned God's goodness, His power, and His promises. The ultimate test came when they finally reached the borders of Canaan, the Promised Land. Moses sent 12 spies, one from each tribe, to scout out the land. After 40 days, they returned. 10 of them came back with a report filled with fear. They spoke of fortified cities and giant-like people. "We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them," they said, spreading panic through the camp. Their fear was contagious. Only 2 spies, Joshua and Caleb, held on to faith. They tore their clothes in distress and pleaded with the people, "The land we passed through and explored is exceedingly good. If the Lord is pleased with us, He will lead us into that land, and will give it to us." But the people wouldn't listen. They were paralyzed by fear. They rebelled, refusing to move forward and even talking about choosing a new leader to take them back to Egypt. Their disbelief had devastating consequences. God decreed that because of their rebellion, they would wander in the wilderness for 40 years. 1 year for each day the spies had explored the land, until that entire faithless generation had passed away. It was a harsh judgment, but even in judgment, God's mercy was present. For those 40 long years, He didn't abandon them. He continued to guide them with the cloud and fire. He fed them with manna. Miraculously, their clothes did not wear out, and their feet did not swell. When they were thirsty, He brought water gushing from a rock. His presence, though sometimes tested, never left them. As the years rolled by, a new generation grew up, born in the desert, knowing only a life of dependence on God. Moses, now an old man, stood before this new generation on the plains of Moab. Looking across at the promised land, he himself would not enter. He gave them a final, powerful charge. Remember how the Lord your God led you all the way in the wilderness these 40 years to humble and test you in order to know what was in your heart. His farewell wasn't one of defeat, but of profound faith. He was teaching them that the real promise isn't just a piece of land. It's a life of obedience and trust in God. The wilderness, then, isn't just a physical place of wandering. It's a classroom for the soul. It's in the desert places of our own lives, the times of uncertainty, loss, and waiting, that God strips away our illusions of self-reliance. He shows us that true, resilient faith isn't forged in comfort, but in struggle. Perhaps like ancient Israel, each of us has to walk through our own wilderness. It's there we learn that we can't make it on our own, and it's there that we learn to know the one who leads us, so that when we finally step into our own promised land, we know without a doubt who brought us there. Thank you so much for watching. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more content that explores these timeless truths. See you in the next video.